Hello everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make a great batch of biscuits called Anzac Biscuits. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the word, Anzac is in fact an acronym with the letters A-N-Z-A-C standing for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. The Anzacs were largely volunteer soldiers who distinguished themselves in the theatre of war on the other side of the world nearly 100 years ago. They were recognised as being men of courage, with a strong sense of camaraderie, a laid-back demeanour and a ready smile. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire, or Turkey, was allied with Germany, and the Germans convinced Turkey to block the Dardanelles Strait. The Dardanelles Strait formed the shipping route between the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea. By closing this route, it prevented Allied arms and supplies from reaching Russia and the Eastern Front. In response to this, the British Navy launched a series of attacks against the defensive positions on the Turkish peninsula called Gallipoli. These attacks were a failure and ended up in a humiliating defeat for the Allies. In a change of strategy, it was decided that troops on the ground would be the best way to neutralise these Turkish defences. Soldiers from the United Kingdom, France, India, Nepal and the Anzacs sailed from the Allied base to Turkey. On the 25th of April 1915, just before dawn, these soldiers landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula. There was general confusion and mayhem during these landings. The terrain was made up of steep sandy cliff faces and a thick tangled scrub was growing over the top. Despite these setbacks, pockets of the attacking force did make some good gains inland, but without proper backup were forced back and had to dig in. Conditions at Gallipoli were dreadful. The close proximity of some of the fighting meant that the burial of some of their fallen comrades was impossible. During the summer months, it was said that swarms of flies would dart between the latrines and unburied corpse and then onto a soldier's meal. One soldier wrote that it was a feat of human resolve to see that a man would even contemplate eating with that level of stench of decay thick in the air. In winter, some soldiers lost limbs to frostbite and others suffered from exposure, all adding to the misery. The Gallipoli campaign was a failure, and it was seriously flawed by a lack of preparation and poor execution. In fact, it has been said that the only success at Gallipoli was the evacuation. I used to think that Anzac biscuits originated at Gallipoli owing to the fact that the limited supplies of the army kitchens necessitated a simple recipe. It turns out though that they got their name from the fact that women in both New Zealand and Australia used to bake these biscuits at home to be sent to the soldiers at Gallipoli. Anyway, let's eat. First of all, preheat the oven to 180 degrees, or if like me you have a fan-forced oven, put it on to 160 degrees. Next, over a low to medium heat, melt 100 grams of butter along with 1 tablespoon of golden syrup. Once the butter and the golden syrup have melted together, we can place it aside and allow it to cool for a bit. Then, into a large mixing bowl, add half a cup of sugar, 3/4 of a cup of desiccated coconut, 3/4 of a cup of rolled oats, and I'll sift in 3/4 of a cup of plain baking flour. Give that a quick mix in. Next, add 1 teaspoon of baking soda to 1 tablespoon of hot water. Give that a bit of a stir and then just set that aside. Add the melted golden syrup and butter and give it a stir. At this point you can add the baking soda and hot water as well. The baking soda and water is the rising agent for this recipe. Because it doesn't contain any eggs, that's the reason why the biscuits were able to last on the long journey from New Zealand and Australia to Gallipoli. I find it's actually easier to mix it in with your fingers. Once it is all mixed in, Roll into golf ball sized balls and place onto a baking tray. And place them in the oven, cooking them for 10 to 15 minutes or until they are golden brown. There was one particularly horrific battle that lasted for nearly 3 days. Thousands of Turkish soldiers started piling up in the summer heat, with one soldier calling it 8 acres of bodies. Eventually the Turks requested a ceasefire, and at this time a strange thing happened. Handshakes and gifts were exchanged between the two sides. Turkish troops who were able to speak English chatted to the Anzacs, and the Anzacs realized that these troops were in fact decent men. A strange sort of honour grew between the two sides from that moment onwards. One Anzac soldier wrote home that the Turkish soldier can be called whatever you like, but ultimately he is a gentleman. Though these events happened nearly 100 years ago, every year before dawn, on the 25th of April, people throughout both New Zealand and Australia gather at memorial services to remember those soldiers who served at Gallipoli. In Turkey today, there are a number of impressive memorials and war cemeteries dedicated to the soldiers of both sides. Conversely, in both New Zealand and Australia, there are memorials dedicated to an inspirational Turkish military leader called Mustafa Kemal. In 1934, he offered these generous and I think quite beautiful words to those Anzac soldiers who fell at Gallipoli and the families that they left behind. I will close out on his words. Thank you for watching. See you again next time.
Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmets to us, where they lie side by side here in this country of ours. And you, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well.